2-3, 2-3, 2-3, 2-3, 2-3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 2-3, 2-3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2-3, 4, 1, 2-3, 4, 2-3, 4, 2-3, 4, 2-3, 4, 2-3, 4, 9, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 1, 2, 1, 2. Hogy áll a hangom? 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back here in Germany. I hope you've had a lovely lunch, but there is no time to waste more time because it is time to get going again here at Motorsport Arena Oschersleben, and we are in for the second sprint of the GT races under the ESET Cup series. We are opening the 2023 season here in Germany. First of the 6 calendar events that are ready for us this year, and let's actually see what how the drivers are ready for the start. We had Neil Verhagen on pole position for the sprint number 1, but he is going to be replaced by his teammate Gregor Žigo for the second sprint, and we have Gregor in P5 on the grid. So it was time then in quali to shine again for Filip Salaquarda. The tables have turned again, and it is the Prague's ISR Racing on pole position. Filip Salaquarda is going to have a clear view in front of himself, and he is getting ready to start from pole, actually for the second time running this weekend, because he was also starting from pole to yesterday's endurance race. He's already busying with interviews, so let's skip quickly to the second placed man, Libor Milota, last season's champion. He was on the podium in race number 1, but now Libor has a clear view ahead into the first corner. So Libor, starting from row number 1 to the second sprint, what are your expectations?
Yes, thank you. Row number 1 is not problem for me. I think that I have a good mood, and I think that start is very. I think that I have a very hard start, and I hope that I am ready to start. And I know that I need a lot of lucky on the turn 1. Yes, and I hope that we will coming good race.
Okay, best of luck, Libor. Enjoy this race. So let's keep going, actually, because we've heard from Filip Salaquarda earlier on, but we have not heard from Mechanik Motorsport very much. And let's actually come across the grid. We have got actually both of the Mechanik Motorsports juniors sharing the front row among the GTC field, and it was Joachim Galasch who scored pole position to the first sprint and also to the second sprint, and he's now getting ready to shine again. Joachim, hi, on the back of your successful TCR European season, you are now enjoying pole position for the second time this weekend, and you took victory in today's race number 1. What is your expectation from race number 2? I guess no less than a victory, right?
Right, you always try to stay or improve on the result you had before, right? So yes, the goal is to finish P1 in the GTC category, hopefully to try and, you know, keep away from the GT3s, because I have nothing to do with them. It would be a pointless waste of time if I ever got to fight with them, but still, the priority is P1 in GTC category.
How are you enjoying the Lambo? It's a bit of a different experience from the Hyundai, right?
Well, you have twice as much power, so it is quite a big difference. And mid-engine, but it still takes a lot of getting used to, you know. I still have to make the big steps, you know, to really adapt to the car and drive the car the way it should be driven, you know. I still have habits, and I drive it like a TCR car in some ways, you know. So yeah, this is really probably the biggest piece of work that awaits me this season.
Okay, then best of luck and enjoy the race. And if we still have a minute, I hope we do, then let's take a look at the other side of the front row of the GTC cars, if we may, because we have got Maciej Pawliczek on the other end of the front row among the GTC cars. Can we squeeze in for a little bit? Maciej Pawliczek, you had an interesting moment to start your first sprint earlier on, but then you made up for it with a beautiful drive to P2. Now you are starting P2 alongside your teammate. What can we expect maybe in the first corner and then during the rest of the race?
Well, I learned from my mistake. I put the temperatures in the tires, front tires a little bit more, and I'm not going to try to get squeezed like before. So hopefully I made it through the first corner.
Okay, thank you very much and best of luck. Enjoy the race. Okay, before we leave the starting grid, let's just have a little more of a walk through the field to actually tell you who is there on the row number 2. We mentioned that it was Neil Verhagen on pole for race number 1. He is now replaced with his teammate and team boss Gregor Žigo. They shared the BMW M4 earlier on today. We've actually got Neil Verhagen here, standing next to the car. So, Neil, a very quick word with you. You won the race number 1. Now you are one of the spectators like us. What did you make of your first race?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was good. We had some pressure from behind, but we managed it quite well. Now it's time for Gregor to do the same.
Yeah. How is the brand new BMW driving?
It's very nice. I think this is one of the more difficult cars for the track, but it shows how good of a job the team's done to put the car up front and be able to win races.
Okay, thank you very much. That was Neil Verhagen. We have got Denis Vashek on the other end of row number 3, but he's actually 3rd among the GTC class cars. Denis Vašek, he was the Endurance Racing's champion together with Gregor Žigo. Last season they shared the M4 in 2022. Now they are both in their respective own machines. And you'll also notice the Lamborghini prepared by the GT2 Motorsport team, and with the guys standing next to it, it's actually staging exactly the same livery like the Mercedes on the front row. Up until last season, this was a characteristic yellow Lambo, now of course in the GT2 Motorsport livery, like the front row starting car. Coming up a little further back, we have got again 2 distinctive machines. Miro Konopka in the Dayglow yellow ARC Bratislava Lamborghini. He hasn't had much of good luck so far, and there is Adam Konopka also on the grid. He did race in the Renault Clio earlier on and will race again. Miro Konopka, he didn't have that much of good luck so far, but now he's trying to make the tables turn and maybe fight a little harder this time out, because he said, I've tried to be maybe a bit more of a gentleman earlier on, but that's not the way to play with the other guys, so I'm going to be more strict, more elbows out. And there is Piotr Verat in P8 returning to the field for the sprint races. So that's the GT3s. Behind us also the GT4 field. We have got right behind me, on your left-hand side, Petr Brecka in the 911 GT3 car, and sharing the row number 5 with him, Bastian Hein, who scored a home victory among the GT4 field earlier on today. And on the 6th row behind them, in the other M4 GT4, that is Zeno Kovac from Trevor Racing, and alongside him, Antonín Herbeck in the red Pagani Zonda. So, get ready for the race. We are going to get loud and going to get fast very soon. And so the cars are ready on the starting grid. It is them without the mechanics, without all the ensemble surrounding them. And that means that we only have seconds before we set off for the formation lap here at Oschersleben. 3.6 kilometers, so it is one of the shorter circuits on the calendar. And the previous races have shown that it is not that easy to overtake here. We'll see what action this race is going to bring. We have got Filip Salakvarda on pole again for the 2nd time running this weekend. I already mentioned that Filip Salakvarda, he was on pole for the endurance race earlier on in the weekend. However, he was somehow miraculously beaten by the Good Speed Racing Mercedes yesterday. However, there was a penalty then applied because the Polish squad actually served the mandatory pit stop in the incorrect fashion, and then a penalty applied. So they lost the victory, and that went back to Filip Salakvarda and his ISR Racing team. The cars are now on the formation lap. We just mentioned that Filip Salakvarda on pole position, alongside him last year's ESET Cup champion Libor Milota in his AMG Mercedes in the GT2 Motorsport livery. Those beautiful red and white colours. Behind them, both Mechanik Motorsport juniors, Joachim Galasch joining the field from TCR Europe, having previously been the best junior of the whole ESET Cup a couple of years back when he raced in the TCR Eastern Europe. And he did race in TCR Europe with Yannick Motorsport, with the Hyundai Elantra. Now he's getting used to a car, as he said himself, you heard from him, as he said, a car with twice as much power and also with rear-driven wheels. So the nature of driving that car is really, really very, very different. And yeah, he's got to unlearn to drive the TCR car, because this is a very, very different beast indeed. Alongside him, his teammate Matěj Pavlíček made a mistake on the opening lap of the race earlier on today. He's going to try and not to make the same mistake again, but we'll see about that. This is, as I already mentioned, one of the best offices that you can have if you actually have to work on the weekend. Then this is the office I would also love to have. So Miro Konopka behind the wheel of his Lamborghini Huracan GT3 alongside Piotr Vera, sharing together the row number 4, and they have a clear view of the top 6 ahead. On the left-hand side from this perspective, Denis Vašek in the third Lambo, and alongside him Gregor Žigot in the M4 BMW GT3. Everything is set and ready for the get-go, and we are racing here in Germany. 25 minutes on the clock, and we are heading towards the opening corner of the circuit. Filip Salaquarda already dealing with Libor Milota. Oh, there's contact between Joachim Galasch and Libor Milota. They crash each other out on the opening corner. What an unfortunate moment, and luckily nobody got collected there. That was Joachim Galasch getting squeezed in by Libor Milota. A little bit unnecessary, as they both are actually fighting in different classes. But what have you, this is what we have out of it. And it is Filip Salaquarda leading comfortably. He's left all the trouble in his rearview mirrors, but then Libor Milota probably squeezed Joachim Galasch a little more than he actually needed to do. And the contact resulted, both of the cars spun. Luckily, it seemed that the nature of the crash wasn't actually very violent, and they were still sort of heading same directions. They were like aquabellas, simultaneously spinning through the first corner. Luckily, nobody else hit them, and everybody managed to avoid that chaotic situation. So Libor Milota is back on the track, so is Joachim Galasch, and that promises an interesting race from both of them as they both now have to cut through the field. So this is handing the GTC class lead to Matěj Pavlíček. He actually found himself in the similar situation to Joachim Galasch at the start of his sprint number 1, but now it is him, the Czech driver, Czech junior, previously racing for RTR KTMs, now leading the way in the GTC with the Lambo. But he is followed closely by the endurance champion from 22, Denis Vašek. He definitely knows his way around the Italian supercar, and he is now immediately trying to shadow the Mechanik Motorsport driver. There is the ISR Racing's prepared Audi R8 already disappearing into the distance. So that was quite some drama to start the race with. Filip Salaquarda leading and has already set the fastest lap of the race. That is only natural on the first lap. Whoever finishes it first will set the fastest lap, but the times will now tumble down. So 1:27.1 is the benchmark from the opening lap of the race. Matěj Pavlíček already trailing the Audi by 5 seconds. Well, basically, we can sort of say that we've got 3 Audis leading the race, as the Lamborghinis are based on the same machine. This is the Pagani Zonda with Antonín Herbeck behind the wheel, fighting it out with the Porsche 911 driven by Petr Brecka. Antonín Herbeck had to start from stone dead last to this race, but he's already made up places, and he seems to be quite far up the field actually. So we've got Salaquarda leading from Pavlíček and Vašek. Those are the podium scoring positions as of now. Piotr Vera in 4th in his Mercedes-AMG GT3, followed by Miro Konopka and Antonín Herbeck actually up into 6th. It seems then that Gregor Žigo also lost places. Yes, he did indeed. in the opening lap. I was going to say carnage, but chaos is probably the better word for it. So Gregor Gigot presumably had to take one of the bigger evasive actions on the first and second corners, and that probably put him out of position and vulnerable from other drivers. So Gregor Gigot in his M4 GT3, he is now catching up with the Zonda. Through the long right-hander, there's the Mercedes. No, sorry, that's the GT2 Motorsport Lamborghini. Really now, when the liveries are the same, pretty much the same, then at least from the distance, the cars appear very, very similar. But of course, the silhouette of the Lambo and of the Merc being completely different. Of course, the Lamborghini is mid-engined, and it's got the 5.2-litre V10 behind the driver's back, and there is Libor Milota cutting through the field in the Mercedes AMG, and he has got the longest bonnet of the whole field. It is 73 kilometers long, and underneath it there is a 6.3-litre naturally aspirated V8. That's where all the rumble and roar comes from in the Merc. Sort of sounds like an angry bear. And there's the couple of Beamers, the M4s. In the GT3, guys, it's got the straight six engine compared to the 4.4 V8 in the previous generation of the M6. That was actually raced by Gregor Gigot up until 2021, and actually for the first race of 22 as well, as the brand new M4 back then hit trouble for the season opener. The car was present pretty much all through the season as a sort of a backup for if anything went wrong with the M4, which it didn't do then. And we did hear about a brand new Porsche also being taken by the Trevor Racing team for the next round in Hungary. The team's already fielded the cars for testing, and they did some photo shoots earlier on in Slovakia. And there is Libor Milota in his Merc. Where has he gone already? He is now on the tail of Gregor Gigot, and they are both also fighting with Joachim Galash. Joachim Galash also having to come through the field after the opening lap clash with Milota. So Milota diving down the inside of Gigot. Gregor Gigot, the other endurance champion from 22. They shared the car together with Denis Vasek for the most of last year's season. Salakvarda already leading comfortably by nearly 8 seconds from Pavlicek, and also setting the fastest lap in the process, 1:23.8, completely unmatched by anybody else. And if we check the lap times of the other drivers, no one is even remotely close to that. Well, maybe Libor Milota, 1:25.1 is the fastest lap of Libor, but still 1.25 seconds further adrift. Just look at that, because the lap one crash attendees, they are now fighting it out together as well. Libor Milota theoretically should be faster than Galash, and he's just overtaken his countryman into the last corner. They are now both chasing the Pagani Zonda, driven by Antonín Herbeck, the Rock Robots team. Ooh, this is gonna be close, and Libor Milota probably thought that Tony Herbeck would see him there, but he shut the door on him. And that's another misunderstanding, and really unfortunate and an unnecessary misunderstanding. Libor Milota is trying to cut through the field as soon as he can. Not sure if he still feels that he's got a chance to win it against Filip Salakvarda, who's holding on to the lead very nicely, but still, That was actually quite unnecessary, needs to be said. From long way back did Libor Milota actually attempt the attack. But then, as he was really trying to brake very late, he understeered off the inside line, and Tony Herbeck was trying to close the door there, simply choosing a wider exit. So it may have appeared from where Libor was sitting that Tony Herbeck was actually letting him through, and we sort of need to pardon him for that, because those are not two cars that should fight each other, actually, for any sort of order in the race. Because the Pagani Zonda is actually entered in the GTX class, so it's not even for a position in the same category. Now you can take a look at it again. A very unfortunate moment, and Tony Herbeck is already gone from the spot of the crash, I hope. I'm trying to check all the other cameras, but I do not see him there. So, what we do know... Oh, and there's a yellow flag, and this looks like a full course yellow, isn't it? So this might actually be a safety car. Yes. Full course yellow currently being shown, and the safety car will be out because the Pagani still remains stationary in the second corner. There is Miro Konopka, enjoying a much better race than the first sprint where he was out after the lap number 1. Now Miro Konopka currently P5 and third overall in the GT3 class. This is now promising a podium finish for the experienced Slovakian. Let's see that again. There wasn't really much space on the inside, definitely not from the angle in which Milota's car was pointing on the corner entry, and yeah, he jumped across the curb, understeered into the Zonda, which was not really leaving there more space than was necessarily needed. There was only one car's width on the inside, but if you take a look at everybody's racing line through there, everyone's hitting the apex of turn 2 and then actually understeering wide, and then coming back to the inside a little later on. So it's sort of a spoon-shaped trajectory that you're taking through there. You start with the early apex, then you come all the way to the outside of the corner, and then you sort of break it back in to the corner, to the inside line, and then you're attempting for a late apex on the exit, which means that nobody can theoretically, well, nobody can realistically expect that if you're actually attacking down the inside that you would actually stay glued to the inside curb. That is never going to happen. And I just think that there was a terrible misunderstanding between the two. Of course, both of the men will probably be, well, of course, be disappointed with the way this panned out. I can just assume probably that Tony Herbeck was not really letting Milota through. He was just taking his usual racing line and not really expecting that Milota would still launch an attack so late into the corner. Whereas Libor, I don't know if he thought that Herbeck was trying to let him through, or maybe just he just braked late. Could also be that. Oh, that's not good. The Dacia Duster very nearly taking more than just dust off the rear wing of the Zonda. Guys, careful. These cars are not cheap. So there's still discussion between Herbeck, who remains seated in the car with the track marshal. Is Antonin Herbeck going to be able to restart the car and actually get going again? Either way, the Zonda is still there, and that's not a safe place to park your car. He might get a ticket for that. No, he's going to get towed away after all. Good. Not sure about that, really. I don't know if you've ever driven a Pagani Zonda. Chances are that you haven't. But you'll notice that the rear visibility is extremely poor in that car. It's a high-performance hypercar. And yeah, it's not really built for reversing in the car park, let's say. Or going to shops. Or, I don't know, hitching a trailer or whatever, because the rear visibility is pretty much non-existent in the Zonda. So I don't think that's a good way to actually try and reverse the car out and through the gap in the barrier. But yeah, but still the clearing activities are taking more than probably necessary. Now the track marshals are trying to hitch the car up on its front, and there we have a bigger chance for success. There we go. So, Salaquarda leading from Pavlicek. All the gaps are now going to get back to pretty much zero. So whatever you've managed to pull in the first half of the race is going to be gone for the remaining laps of the race. Okay, so we are not towing the Zonda after all. Come on, guys, 9 minutes, that's not that long, really. And as the time is counting down to zero, we might want to think about the sort of Formula One approach. Maybe red flag the race and have a complete chaos towards the end. Why not? So it is Filip Salaquarda in his Audi R8, leading. Well, not comfortably anymore, but he shouldn't really be troubled by the GTC Lambos. And there's two of them on his back. There's Matej Pavlicek in second, and there is Denis Vasek in third. Piotr Vera currently fourth and second in the GT3 class. Then Miro Konopka in fifth. Tony Herbeck no longer there, of course, in the standings. We have got Libor Milota in sixth. Behind him, Joachim Galash, and then Gregor Žigo, Petr Brecka in ninth, Zeno Kovac in 10th, and Bastian Hein in 11th, which also means that the fight for the GT4 victory is now turning out the other way around than it did in the earlier sprint race. So Zeno Kovac leading from Bastian Hein. Now the Zonda is getting pulled away. And hopefully this will be the last lap under the safety car, and then we can go green again and restart the racing procedure. And there he goes. So with the hazard gone, we shall now return back to racing action with 6 minutes left on the clock, which isn't much, but still something at least. And there are still a couple of battles to be sorted out. Salaquarda leading. His position seems to be quite secure at this stage. Maciej Pavlicek fighting for his first victory in the GTC class with the Lambo. Denis Vashek, however, right on his tail. And I presume that he's not going to just let him get away with it that easily. Piotr Vera in fourth, but second among the GT3s. And then Miro Konopka in third of the GT3 class. Libor Milota right behind him, however. So there is still a fight to be had for podium places in the GT3 class. Of course, provided that Libor Milota is not penalized after the race for the clashes, which he might very well do. We'll see about that. Okay, 5 minutes left on the clock. Safety car is coming back to the pits, and we will get racing. We will go racing once again. Filip Salaquarda already coming on the throttle, negotiating the final corner, and we are racing in Germany once again. Just under 5 minutes from home. There's green flag being showed. Also the 5-minute board probably. Or maybe a penalty actually for someone. Let me just check the messages from race control if there is anything to be seen. Actually nothing right now. Okay, so Salaquarda leading, Pavlicek leading his own class from Denis Vashek. There they are. Behind them Piotr Vera, Miro Konopka, Libor Milota, Joachim Galaš. That's still going to be interesting. Can Joachim Galaš move up the field in the remaining laps? Gregor Žigo all the way down in 8th overall right now, from Petr Brecka, Zeno Kováč and Bastian Hein. And this is Libor Milota already trying to get past Miro Konopka. Konopka leaving him quite a lot of space down the inside, but Libor Milota actually pulled out of that one. I think he's probably had enough of contacts for this race and will try to avoid any other one. He is having another look on the inside of Konopka just to unsettle the opponent. And into the last corner, I'm expecting him to actually launch a proper attack. Seems to be quite far away, yes, so he is remaining behind. And we are re-entering the start and finish straight. That was a much better exit from Libor Milota, and they are now slipstreaming past the pit wall. Konopka defended well, putting to use all of his vast experience from GT and Le Mans racing. He did race in the 24-hour Le Mans race on multiple occasions and also fought in the Asian Le Mans series in his career. Pretty much everything you can do in the GT and prototype racing he's done. Libor Milota, on the other hand, a really fairly lovely chap who's enjoying his dream come true in the last seasons to be racing with a proper GT3 Mercedes. And he's already enjoyed successes with that. As I mentioned, he is the ESET Cup champion from 2022 with the GT2 Motorsport, trying to defend the crown in 23, but it seems that it's going to be really hard for him. The opposition definitely coming very strong this season. So, around the last corner once again, and another attempt to actually pull something on Miro Konopka. However, Libor was pulling out of the slipstream, not really sure why. If he's having to cool down his car. So we should be finding ourselves on the penultimate lap of the race. with 1 minute 10 seconds left on the clock right now. Through the triple left-hander, this is Piotr Vera. He's pulled away a bit from Konopka, and in front of him there's the GTC fight unraveling. Maciej Pawlicek has already built a 1.5 second gap over Denis Vasek, so that one seems secure for now. Galash trying to stay in the mix, but he can't really keep up with the AMG Merc ahead, so very probably he's simply going to end up third in the GTC class. Gregor Žigo following in 8th. And Libor Milota coming into the pits. So I believe that board shown on the pit wall right at the restart was not a 5-minute signal, because that's not what is normally shown in the race. But that must have been a penalty already applied on the driver, or imposed on the driver. And that gives the definitive breathing space for Miro Konopka. So we actually saw Libor Milota drive through the pit lane. And he's out of it again. He seems to have served the drive-through penalty. And he's dropping down the order. This is not going to be a podium finish on the Sunday afternoon. On the other hand, though, Filip Salaguarda, he hasn't allowed any sort of drama to happen anywhere near his Audi R8. He simply disappeared at the start. He's driving like he's stolen the car, which he of course hasn't, but he's simply disappeared from anybody else. And there he goes to score his first sprint race victory of the 2023 season. Filip Salaguarda teams his endurance race victory from yesterday with a sprint win on Sunday afternoon. And with second place from the sprint number 1, that is going to be an undisputed lead of the standings after the opening round of the championship. Maciej Pawlicek claims his first victory in the GTC class, and he is now matching his teammate Joachim Galash. They scored a 1-2 for Michanek Motorsport earlier on today. Now the tables have turned, and it was actually Galash in trouble in the first corner. But unlike Pawlicek, Joachim was unable to catch up for that and make up for that. So Maciej Pawlicek will now be the championship leader in the GTC category. Denis Vasek coming home second in the class and third overall. Behind them, the second and third placed GT3 drivers Piotr Vera and Miro Konopka. The bad luck was simply glued to his shoes all the weekend up until this afternoon, and finally he's come home with a strong result to his name, and he will be on the podium in third position. Miro Konopka 5th overall, behind him Joachim Galash, who scores the third place in the GTC class. Gregor Žigo P7 overall, behind him Petr Brecka, and then Zeno Kovač, Bastian Hein and Libor Milota coming home in 11th, having been in 2 clashes during this race. So let's see the highlights of that. That was the race start. Libor Milota on the front row, but then having a contact with Joachim Galash in the first corner. This was Miro Konopka and his attempt to actually stay together with Piotr Vera, however unsuccessful. Libor Milota was coming through the field after the opening lap incident until this happened. A misunderstanding between Milota and Antonín Herbeck that ended Herbeck's race, and through a penalty relegated Libor Milota to stone-dead last position in today's race. And there is the race winner, Filip Salaguarda, coming back to racing, coming back to GT cars, coming back to ESET Cup series, and he is scoring his first sprint race victory. This is Denis Vasek in the GT2 liveried Lamborghini Huracan, and alongside him the car number 66, the GTC class winner of today's sprint race, Matěj Pavlíček. He raced in the ESET Cup previously for the RTR Projects team with the KTM, first the crossbow and then the bigger GTX, and Matěj Pavlíček enjoying and celebrating the victory with the rest of the team. There's Josef Záruba, his coach, in the winter hat and sunglasses. A great combination at all times anyway. And this is the team ISR and Filip Salaquarda enjoying his overall victory with the R8 Audi. His dad and the team boss Igor Salaquarda also present. And it has gone all right for the team from Průhonice, team from Prague, because the sun has come out. It's still quite cold here at Oschersleben, but it is at least bearable under the sunshine, and the smiles are really combined with that very nicely. So, GT4 class won by Zeno Kovács this time out. The young Hungarian. He beat the local Bastian Hein for the race victory this time out, as the order was the other way around earlier on in the sprint race number 1. And unfortunately, the only GTX car in the field, Antonín Herbeck, didn't actually see the finish line. You actually see also the results now, not exactly set in stone, putting graphics for now, but of course, for them to be set in stone, everything needs to go through the final scrutineering. And with that, we will now sort of log out of the broadcast, but we'll be back very, very soon in just a couple of minutes, because the racing will be resumed in a jiffy when we will go green with the second race of the TCR Eastern Europe. So make sure that you are back for it.